Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Wilson. Wilson is adorable, precious, intelligent, just an amazing human being. We met through the online community, and he shares his story tonight about what it was like to grow up adopted. He was left on a doorstep in China, a baby, a few days old, and was eventually adopted out at 10 months old to America and has grown up in Nebraska. He has written a book called Marked by Adoption, which is a book for all people involved in the adoption process. His story is definitely one of how a mindset shift can literally change the trajectory of your life. This kid is going places. He's 19 years old, and he recorded this episode from his dorm room. Just a super special episode. I know you guys are going to love it. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Wilson to the podcast.
Hi, thank you. It's an incredible honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. So we know each other through the online community. And where are you coming in from?
Coming in from Nebraska right now. I'm actually at my dorm at Creighton University.
What year are you in school?
I just started my sophomore year, so.
Sophomore year. Okay, that's awesome. So are you 19?
I am 19, yes.
19 years old. Okay. And are you from Nebraska?
After being adopted, I've lived in Nebraska all my life. So, college, it's like a 15-minute drive from home. It's really nice, actually.
Yeah. What are you studying in school?
Marketing and management.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm super excited to get into your story. I know you're an author, and we have lots of interesting things to talk about. Before we do that, we're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote for your episode is by, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but his name is Dieter Uchtdorf, and he is a fighter pilot, a captain, and a church leader. So the quote goes, "It's your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop." What does that quote make you feel?
I think, that's just a good example of my life. And, it really is a good message for everyone to hear. And that adversity, you're not going to escape adversity. Adversity is going to come. No matter how old you are, no matter where you're from, you're going to face it. And it's all about that. Your reaction is what matters, not the event, but your reaction to that event. But if you have an optimistic mindset, then that's how you overcome it, not be defined by those things.
Yeah, that was really well said. I wish I had your emotional intelligence and maturity at 19. I was like dancing on a bar somewhere. But yeah, that's awesome that you have that insight. And I agree with you 100%. When I hear this quote, it makes me think of a lot of things, but kind of what you talked about, how change is inevitable. Adversity is inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen to you. And how you interpret that and what you do with it literally can change the course of your life. Looking at whatever you're going through as an opportunity to grow strength, to grow resilience, to grow toughness, to grow grit, instead of staying stuck in your victimhood for whatever it is that you're going through. Like, you can go there for a minute, but don't stay there, crawl your way out and use it for good. It makes me think of that. And then it also makes me think of, to get a little bit spiritual, but God doesn't necessarily give us strength, but he gives us opportunities to grow that strength. And so that's how I look at adversity when it comes my way.
Yeah, no, that's very similar in that ways. I believe with God, he gives us the opportunity to, grow through. If I pray for strength, I don't think he gives me strength. I think he gives me opportunities to become stronger. And so it's just, if we can identify those opportunities, we're more likely to kind of get our result from our prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. The quote also makes me think of the whole idea of like, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And when
Yeah.
you can do that little bit of mindset shift, it really changes everything. It changed the filter of your life,
Yeah, mindset's everything. Crap's going to happen. You don't want to kind of tuck and ball away, but you can't. You got to just take each punch and ask life, what else can you throw at me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to hear your story. I have all different types of people on my show. I am a person in recovery from alcohol use disorder, so I do have a lot of addiction on my show, but I also showcase many other stories of resilience and overcoming and all different things. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
All right. Well, I guess I would start. My story begins in China in 2006, where I was found in a doorstep no forms of identification. Ads ran in the paper saying, hey, we have a young baby boy here. Nobody stepped forward. There, I went to the orphanage system throughout China, and in where during this time is kind of a gray area. We don't fully know for sure, but we do know at 10 months I was adopted by my parents here in Nebraska. And so that story of my adoption really controlled my life until about 17 or 18. I was attributing my worth to my birth parents. A lot of it was, if I wasn't good enough for them, would I be good enough for anybody? Seeing stories growing up about, parents, giving birth to their child and looking into the child's eyes and falling in love with them, it really just really stuck with me going, why didn't my birth mother have that? What was so wrong about me? Was it the way I looked? Was it something that I did? I really took it to heart. That story is incredible in the fact that I know I shouldn't be here right now. Like, we should not be able to have this conversation. I should not be able to wake up. I should not be able to attend a great university because some of the things going on in China during this time in '06 was the one child policy. Families are only permitted to have one child. The culture, you wanted a healthy male. Everybody knows like the stigmatization like this about girls in China during this time being born. Well, I'm a healthy baby boy. I have nothing wrong with me. And so the fact that I'm over here thousands of miles away, the fact that somebody found me on that doorstep, the fact that I've survived the orphanage system that was going through malpractices, just adding up all those different variables, the stars had to align for me to be where I'm at. And so that's kind of my story of resilience of that. I wake up with the fact knowing that I should be dead and that really just put a kind of edge in my life, put a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. Wow. Wow,
Mm.
that's wild story. So I have some questions. Have you ever met your birth parents before?
No, there's no percentage chance of me ever meeting him. The paperwork we have, that's the story, but still could have been falsified. There's a lot of stuff coming out now about adoptions overseas, but it's my story that I have. It's the only one I've ever read, so I'm gonna stick with it. And no, so there's unfortunately no chance of me ever meeting them.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to find them in terms of like doing ancestry DNA or anything like that?
No, I had that hadn't sparked really kind of my mind. Right now I'm kind of just trying to figure out who I am, what I kind of like to do, and maybe down the road in my life I'll want to really dig into that. But as for now, I think I just should try and get through my business law class.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's very good perspective. So you said you were 10 months old when you were adopted, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have no recollection of China or anything over
No
there?
recollection of it, no. But I mean, that's the thing of like, I have no recollection, but the fact that I can read this paperwork, see the baby photo I have, see like the toy they gave me at the hospital and think, oh my God, this stuff is from halfway across the world. And this was me. I endured all that. Whether I was able to remember or not, this body responses that we have, that I had, were still kicking, and it's still kind of inside of me. So no, it was kind of an unreal realization, I'll say, to come to terms that this happened to me. I might not have the memory, but it was me that went through all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's super fascinating and interesting. And it makes me think of, you have a much bigger purpose on this planet than we even know? I wanted to ask you, because I personally don't know the stats, but do you know how often babies get adopted from China? Is it a common occurrence or was it really rare for you to get a second chance at life?
So it kind of just depends on the leaders. A couple countries got shut down with international adoptions, they stopped. So it's all just kind of based on the political state of both countries. But another thing is what's super cool is, I don't know if you know this about international adoptions, but usually the parents kind of have an idea going, okay, we're looking for a baby, overseas. Let's go visit the parents. Let's go visit the baby first, see if there's that connection. Then, well, my parents didn't know that they were gonna have me from across the world. They had an adoption kind of fall through within like a short 72 hours to a week time span. I think, boom, I was in their home. They got a call saying, hey, we have a baby boy here. Boom, I was in their home. And so it was just kind of the fact that doesn't happen. International adoptions where the parents just get kind of sprung on, that doesn't really happen. Usually the parents are pretty prepared. But so just like all those factors that you go, that shouldn't happen. Like, there's no way this all lined up, that really just sparks that idea that, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be, in this country, the opportunities. I'm grateful to have my family. It's truly just, I wake up every day just grateful and describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ties back into the quote that we started the episode with, but like
Yeah.
using what you went through as that filter of gratitude and optimism and this opportunity that you have to have this second chance at life in America.
Well, I wouldn't have had all the opportunities I have right now over in China. So I'm definitely making sure not to waste it over here. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible honor. I love the USA. I love my country. So it's really cool that I can, have kind of both things be a part of me because it makes up who I am.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you whole. I wanted to ask you a few questions. So, regarding your parents, did they
Mhm.
have children before? Had they ever adopted before? Are you their first child, only child?
I'm their only child. I like to tell people they got the best, they got the cream of the crop with me and decided to be done afterwards. And so whether they
Yeah.
agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. It's my story and I'm going to stick to it and keep telling people that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're extremely proud of you. My other question for you there is when were you informed that you were adopted? What age? And kind of give us that process.
So, I mean, I always knew my are Caucasian. And so there was always that, looking down at me, looking at my dad going, huh, either someone's got a really good story or I'm adopted. And so it was always something that I knew. They were always very open about it. They were actually adopted both themselves and their families. And so we're truly just a family of three formed by adoption. Super cool. I mean, they were amazing growing up, always able to have an open discussion because they were adopted. They kind of knew what I might be going through. No, they're from a time where, you don't talk about anything, born in the early 60s. So there's that older generation. But it was that kind of unwritten rule. They knew, I knew they knew, and we just kind of like coexisted, but we both had a good mutual understanding of, the things I was dealing with growing up.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's awesome that y'all had that open communication. And I'm not here to judge anyone for however they choose, to interact with their child and their family dynamics, but, you do see some cases where the child doesn't know and then it comes out later and there's that distrust and that can be damaging. So I think, having that open communication was probably really awesome.
Well, it's great. I see a lot of stories in adoption where if the child didn't feel like they could have the open communication or the parents just didn't know how to bring up those conversations. But like everything, as time progresses, we learn the best way to care for each other. We learn better ways for adoptees to get support, but then we also learn better ways for parents to get support. And so it's super cool that I kind of had a forward thinking family before it was a thing to have that. And, it's now okay. I am living proof that a good adoption exists and that positive adoptions are out there. And so my goal is to use my story to inspire others that positive adoptions can happen. It's not always terrible. Yes, there's challenges. I went through those challenges, but it's all about how do we, like the quote, how do we respond to that adversity instead of just sitting in it?
Yeah, I'm putting myself in your shoes. I like to do that with my guests and try to kind of embody what you were going through. And I imagine when you were young and you start to be able to have memories, when you're a child, you just want to be like your peers. You just want to fit in. It's just part of the way that we are as humans and how we evolve. So I'm thinking about you at that age, and I imagine that it was difficult that you felt at times maybe different from your peers. Is that kind of where that whole relationship with being an adopted child came into play?
Well, I mean, I never felt different from my peers. Those conversations of, being different never really came up. To me, it was always I never looked at my friends of kind of being different in any, race, religion, any aspects. It was just my friends. And, I know others have had different experiences where they've felt different. But for me, it was always just I was raised to treat others by the color of their heart, by the color of their soul, nothing else. And so that was something super that was embodied into me as a young age. So now I kind of carry that with me today. It was really the fact I believe that they understood kind of how I would feel as an adoptee. But again, just being from a different time, you couldn't talk about it back then. Now we're in a different time where it's open. So I think they just really wanted to have that openness in this place where they weren't able to have it as a younger kids themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've written a book about your experience. I'd love to
Yes.
know, what the book's about, how the book came to be. Kind of give us that take.
Yeah, well, I guess to start off the book, I think I want to bring up the why of its, thing. So what it is that, like I said, a lot of adoptees have that. If I wasn't good enough for my birth parents, would I be good enough for anybody? I know I had it, and it controlled my life. It brought up mental health things, and it really just was the guiding factor in my life. It was about, I would say, like I said, 17, sophomore, junior year of high school, where I kind of got sick of that story. I kind of got sick of it ruining my life because not only was it ruining me on the health aspect, it was putting tensions on my relationships with my friends. I was having the same conversation over and over again, going, I don't feel like I'm anything. I'm sorry I'm having this talk with you, but I just don't. And it was psycho. It was a cat and mouse game. And every time I had, these thoughts, I would always be able to talk to people. Well, it was a particular friend. We were having a conversation about it, and I just was, I'm sorry, I don't feel like anything. I'm sorry, I'm bugging you. I'm sorry. I'm just really apologizing and felt really guilty for having this conversation with them. And they kind of snap me and go, hey, look, we choose to be here for you. And that really stuck with me. And that's when I realized that my adoption blinded me from seeing everything that adoption gave me. Gave me a great loving family, gave me opportunities, gave me friends. I love the power of friendship. That sounds pretty childish to say at my age, but I mean, here's what it is. You can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends. And I don't know about you, but I'm not friends with anybody I don't like. I don't think you're friends with people you don't like. So it's the fact that they choose you the same way you choose them. I always love saying it's the similarities alike of why people come together, but it's how they learn to love the differences for why they stay. And the fact that these people learn to love our differences and want to be here for me while I was struggling. I mean, you can beat that feeling when you got people rooting you on more than you do yourself. And so if I didn't owe it to myself to overcome my adoption, I owed it to them. Not only that, with friendship support, I had a great school system supporting me, great counselors. And so it was really just from that angle of getting tired of having my adoption run my life and seeing the amount of support I had always. That's when I said, okay, I'm going to get a hold of this thing. And then that's when the flipped mindset off of, okay, instead of looking at it like I wasn't wanted, I'm going to look at it like an opportunity. How many other kids in China were not adopted? How many other kids were not found? Let me look at the statistics of me being here and realizing, holy crap, I need to get off my ass and start doing something because there is a bigger reason for me being here. And so that was really the need, I guess, for it, overcoming my own. I knew that there were other people feeling that way and I wanted to help. But I guess the biggest thing of why I wanted to write the book were two events, and I'll sum them up shortly. Senior year of high school, I get asked by a mentor, her name's Shannon Bingham, to testify for a resolution at the Nebraska State Capitol. It examined the lack of resources for adoptees and foster care. During my testimony, I gave a speech saying a lot of I wishes. I wish I had more support. I wish my parents had more support. Everyone had more support in adoption. Senator comes up to me and goes, I love all the I wishes you had, but turn those into I wills. Don't wait for the government to create change. And that really stuck with me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do that. Then flash forward, I'm at a different event with Shannon Bingham. I'm talking to this adoptive mother who has a daughter from Asia, 9 or 10, and she said something to me. If I didn't have the background I have in adoption, I would be lost at these questions. When your child is 9 or 10 going, why am I adopted? What happened to me? What's my story? Unless you've been in that situation, unless you know how to handle those questions, you don't really know. You kind of freeze a little bit. And I said, you know what? She's right. Boom. I had the reason of overcoming. That was my story. I had the calling to do it at the Nebraska State Capitol. Now I have the why I need to do it. It's because I wanted to fill in that extra support that parents don't have if they didn't have a background in adoption. And so it really just sparked me thinking, okay, so do I want to talk about my story? What do I want to talk about? I left my story out of the book. And everyone thinks it's about my story. I left it out because I didn't want this book to be about me. I want it to be about adoption. So what it is, I actually have a copy right here because I'm giving it to teachers. So I have a couple, but this is the book. Marked by Adoption, 10 Key Insights from an Adoptee's Perspective. And what it is, it's just literally the subheading. It's 10 insights that I've learned in my life at 19 years old that I think everybody should know. Not just adoptive families, but birth mothers and the public. And what it is it's essentially a quick 2-hour read, cup of coffee in the afternoon, nice breeze, just read it out on your porch. And it's just to really open your mindset, open the way you think about adoption, really challenge what you might know. And I did it to inform, most of all. I did it to educate. And I also did it to be that resource that parents didn't have. I call it a go-to all for how your child may be thinking. And I'm always careful about the may because I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak on my experiences. And so, that's really how Marked by Adoption came to be. And I'm happy to announce that we did 48 hours ago launch my website, markedbyadoption.com. So that's super cool. There you can, get the link to get the book. You can see the testimony, like the testimonials we have, and some of them just bring a tear to my eye every time read them. You can see that everything, just behind the scenes, a little bit about me, the way to contact me, and it's really just a super cool way to kind of also showcase what the book has done itself. I launched it, self-published it on my own, so there was no marketing team, editing team. It was up to me. And I'm happy to say, by the grace of God, within 4 months, 4 or 5 months of release, it was a #1 new release on Amazon. It's become worldwide. It's been added to adoption agencies like recommended reading lists. It's been shared by trauma-informed parenting groups. It's just, and I can go on, but it really is making an impact far greater than I could ever have thought of. And that's kind of where it comes first full circle of had the call to action, had the okay, I'm gonna do it, and then now I'm just reaping the benefits of the work and seeing, okay, if it's done this on my own within 4 months, what are the next 4 months gonna look like? How do I keep this momentum rolling? And so that's kind of where we're at now with Marked by Adoption.
Yeah, yeah, I have to remind myself that you're 19 because it's just absolutely incredible. I mean, I was doing jello shots in my dorm and you're writing a book. You know what I mean? Like it's just amazing. It's so amazing to think that you've already accomplished such a huge lifetime goal at such a young age. Your trajectory is for the moon. You know what I mean? You have so much potential in you to already have this ability at such a young age and this insight and this emotional intelligence. So I'm like super excited to see your trajectory.
Yeah, I know that's the goal, and my mind, I'm really good about that. Is I do like the 24-hour rule, like publish the website, 24 hours, celebrate. Okay, now how do I improve the website? Where do I see people are going? How do I include more things? What's my next project? Is it more podcasts? Is it another book? Is it a worksheet with my book? So it's always just about how do I keep getting better. Every month
Yeah.
the calendar resets, and it's always I want to outdo last month, but be better than the next month. And so that's kind of how I keep the hunger for all these things going.
Yeah. When I hear you tell your story and everything that you've done, accomplished, I think ultimately you're not afraid of failure. You're not afraid. I think a lot of people have great ideas, but the fear of failure holds them back from doing anything. But you're someone that's like, let's go and then I'll figure it out later. Like I love that.
Yeah, no, and trust me, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. I have failed multiple times. I mean, if I could show you my email list, I have about 1,000 cold emails from just, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. Hey, I'd love, from I first started. No one wants to be the first to take on the kid who just wrote a book or wants to share a story. But after things start piling up, then it's okay, now he's got credibility. And so you will fail. I mean, I've never told anyone this, but the first day, Marked by Adoption wasn't the original title. It was Marked by Adoption, but in Latin. Well, I posted it on accident on Amazon. And so I have to email Amazon the day of post going, oh my God, I meant to turn it back to English. Can you please change it back? And
Yeah.
I got it, by the grace of God, Worker goes, we don't normally do this, but yes, I will.
Mm.
Boom. And then made sure. So, you're going to fail. I failed it. But I mean, every time I get a no, every time I get a turn, a no, thank you, or I get a setback, it's always okay. I might have a hole now, but that means I can just use the hole to boost myself up more. And so I just take everything as a challenge. Like if you tell me no, okay, let me show you. I'm going to go do it then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, using those quote unquote failures as opportunities to learn and to grow from. And, they're not bottoms at all. They're, if anything, they're slingshotting you forward.
Absolutely. It's super cool though that my life trajectory, I get that a lot. Your life trajectory, you're doing so much at a young age that in my mind, I haven't done anything yet. In my mind, it's, there's no bigger fool than a man who thinks he's got it all figured out. And I'd be a huge fool right now if I thought I had it all figured out. Do I know what I've done is great? Yes. Am I proud of it? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean I can't keep learning. There's so much still I can know. It's so much my brain wants to soak up in knowledge. And so it's always just about, I have a good foundation, but that foundation doesn't mean anything if I'm not going to build a mansion on top of it. So it's now, how do I start building that mansion?
Yeah, and don't hang up your hat here. Like keep going. Get more hat racks. Keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah, keep that fire in you. Just like keep it burning.
Yeah, it's always going to be there. It's always been there. Now that I have my calling and my why, the biggest thing is, I'm sure you've heard of this. I've not made one yourself, but you know what like a vision board is? So my whole thing is I don't like vision boards. You put on there, I've made one or two, and it's, I wanted a truck, I want a house, I want a good family, I want a, new Xbox, just new something. But every time I would stare at that vision board, it was just only wants. And then I realized one day those wants don't mean anything if I don't have the will to do the things to get me those wants. Those wants don't mean anything unless I have my why. So I kind of took down my want board, my vision board, and created a why. Why am I going to get up? Why am I going to do the hard things? Why am I going to stay up all night trying to work on the perfect edit for a book? And it was the fact that I wanted to help adoption. I wanted to help the very system that I came from. I wanted to provide more resources for my parents to have and future parents to have. I wanted to provide a kind of a healing book for birth mothers that they can rest in the fact that they gave their child for adoption. I wanted to create something to educate the public. So it's really about finding my why is the key and what I continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. When your passion aligns with your purpose, that's your potential. And that's what I see when I hear you tell your story, is I see it all just intertwining. And I mean, yeah, we could talk and talk about how young you are, but you could really find it at any age. I mean, we don't ever outgrow that. Like, you could find that in your 70s, 80s, whenever.
Yeah, age doesn't mean anything to me. I've never, my age has been something that's where, he 19, 18, 19, whatever. I've been labeled by a counselor that I had of high school as being the oldest, like 18, 19-year-old kid she's ever met. I mean, I have a record player. I love old 50s through 70s music and, movies. So to me, even though my age labeling has been teenagers, right, as a teenager yet, I've always felt a little bit older just from the tastes I like. My favorite singer is Elvis Presley. I love, old country westerns, so just stuff like that. It's always made me feel like I can kind of fit and blend more with an older crowd.
Yeah, an old soul, so to speak. And that's
Oh, yeah.
interesting. We could do like a whole podcast episode on, does this mean your soul's been through this realm multiple times and that's why it's old? Or is it just, your life experience that made you appreciate those things?
I think for me that's a great question actually, but I think for me I know it. It's the fact that I just appreciate it. My dad loves history. Without her past, there is no future, and so I really just took an appreciation of that. And I don't see too many people my age trying to carry on these traditions of records. I don't see people listening to Dean Martin, Johnny Cash, any of those guys. So I'm like, you know what? If it means I have to take the helm and listen to these guys, I'll gladly take that feed. And it's just super cool that I had a lot of my grandparents passed away before anything happened for me, before my senior year of high school. So it's kind of a way also for me to connect with them, is that I can get a record and go, my grandparents heard the same exact sound coming from a record player, and I do 60 years later. So it's super cool. It's kind of like a bonding kind of connecting activity. And I guess you could say an old soul. And I don't know. Whatever the reason may be, I know it's part of me. It's who I am. And I'm never going to apologize for it. I love it.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your book, just because I'm genuinely curious. What
Yeah.
was the writing process like? How did you get started? And how long did it take you from beginning to end to write the book?
So the writing process was tedious. We're all our own self-critics. So there'd be nights where I'd write for 4 hours, write 7 pages, look at it the next day and go, nope, don't like it, and delete it all. Just stuff like that. It was really until I could figure out, okay, is everything I want on the page there? And then I couldn't afford a publisher or editor. So it was, okay, how do I make sure it's grammatically correct? And how do I do this myself? And the process was hard and tedious, but it was also kind of healing for me. It helped me realize that, this is my calling. I didn't know what I wanted to do senior of high school. 2.5 years later, now it took me, so I got the idea going into freshman year of college, and it took me then until I think about 8 months. I published it back in March 29th was the exact date. So it didn't take me too long. It's not a crazy long book, but that's the way I designed it. Our brains love fast and we like feeling accomplished. Nobody today can sit down and read Harry Potter, but if with big print in a book, you can read 10 to 15 pages. And so that was my factors. I wanted it to be a quick, fast kind of not a how-to, but a guide to adoption.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of Harry Potter. I could sit and read that book, but I grew up in that time. I wanted to ask you, why do you feel it's important to talk about adoption?
I think it's important because it's an unwritten rule you don't talk about it. I've never once really met someone, they're like, oh yeah, my name's so-and-so, I like cars, I like trucks, I'm adopted. You don't ever say it out loud. It's always, you find out later going, oh, you're adopted? That's cool. So I think it's just something that needs to be a part of everyday language. I don't like it when people tiptoe around it. Just say it. Not saying anything all at all is worse than tiptoeing around something. People don't know how to talk about it because it's not something that gets talked about. Hopefully my book, kind of really lowers that kind of anxiety to talk about it. But it's important because these stories need to be heard. Kids that didn't have a good adoption need to be heard. Kids that had a great adoption need to be heard. And my thing now is, at its root, adoption is the legal transferring of responsibilities from one child about a child from one person to another. Now, how that person views adoption all depends on their experience. Our experiences shape our views. So I had a great experience. So I love adoption. Someone who didn't have a great experience and let's say got abused by their parents pays adoption. It doesn't make my view right or their view wrong. They're just views. What we need to do is take the aspects from our stories and go, how do we take aspects from mine and aspects from theirs and make sure that every child has a good adoption, or that's the goal. And so it really just is about putting it on the table, bringing it up in conversation. That's why it's important, because if we keep ignoring something, there's no way we can fix it. And that's what I want to do. Adoption isn't going to go away. Whether you hate it or not and think it's a broken system, I'm sorry to tell you, it's never going to go away. The world is imperfect. So it's about how do we then not perfect the system, because we can never perfect it. That's what people got to realize. You can never perfect the system. There's always going to be errors. We're human. There's always going to be letdowns. But how do we make it to where every family feels more prepared? How every child learns how to make sense of it? Our time is limited. My time is limited. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather not spend my time feeling bad about my adoption. I'd rather spend it about feeling positive, having a better mindset, and feeling, just better about it. So that's kind of why I really think it's super important to talk about adoption. It's just to bring it to the table for a conversation.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting perspective. And I agree with you. Yeah. And I love how you said, like, don't avoid it. Talk to me. Talk to me about it. It's not a scarlet letter for you at all. It's like a cool part of your story. You know what I mean? It's you. It's who you are. Why are we hiding from that?
Yeah, I mean, the same way I talk about my adoption is I think I talk about it like I talk about, I think I actually might be more passionate talking about Elvis Presley than I am my own adoption. I love Elvis. But to me, it's just like another fact. So it's
Mhm.
just a part of day life for me.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how does being adopted yourself shift your perspective on a future adoption in your future?
I've always wanted to adopt a child. I think that with the resources I have and kind of living through that experience, it would be an amazing thing to adopt. But again, right now, that's later down the life. Right now, I'm just trying to make it through college. And do I see myself adopting? Absolutely. But the exact details are just undecided right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, you still got a lot of growing up, quote unquote, growing up to do, even though you are very extremely emotionally mature and you would be a phenomenal dad. Yeah, we probably need to graduate from college and out of the dorm room first.
Probably, yeah. No, probably don't want to keep my roommates up with a baby crying all night. They probably wouldn't appreciate that too much.
No, you'd get the RA called on you a few times.
100%.
Do you think whenever it does come that time, and if you do choose to adopt, would you do an international adoption? Do you prefer one of the over the?
I don't really. I don't have a
Mhm.
preference. I think what's important is love, is how do we provide a better life and love for a child. So to me, there is no kind of preference. If I have one, if I usually just kind of with my story and kind of with how I see life has taken me, I haven't taken life. Life has taken me on its journey. Whatever happens will happen. If I have a close friend who needs it, or, if I come and hear a story about a child who needs adopting, if that's the road I take, or if I decide to go overseas, all I know is that it's probably going to happen. And I just, I'm looking forward to that. Me and you are in that same boat of we just can't wait to see what that future holds.
What are your thoughts on foster care?
It's something where I can't speak of it because I've never been through it, but I do know that the system, gets thrown together with adoption. I do know that the system, there's issues, but the idea of foster care came from a good place, came from a
Mm.
place of, love. So that execution is might be where we're falling short a little bit. My views on foster care is I believe that just because something works does not mean it can't be fixed. And, I can't speak too much of it. I don't have experiences in it and I don't fully know what that's like. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. No, that was well said, though.
Yeah.
Definitely. What are your goals moving forward? Like, what's your 5-year goal, 10-year goal? You had talked about maybe a second book. Where do you see yourself in the next few years?
I see my next self in the next few years finishing college for sure. That's a goal. Hopefully getting a house. I really want to kind of start building the foundations of my life. But I think right now my goal is, that question is, what do you want to do 5 years now? What do you want to do 10 years now from now? I don't want to be so focused on the future that I forget about the present. So my answer to that question is I want to just help people, whether it's opening a door for somebody, helping somebody carry something in, helping a family, be able to have a conversation about adoption through the book. I just want to help people. And so that's my goal. I see myself in 5, 10 to the end of my life is just helping people.
Yeah. What you've figured out, again, at your young age, is that service work is where it's at. Service work, giving back to others, that is really essentially, not to get all existential, but the meaning of life. That's where you feel that joy is when you give back to the community that served you, or just even giving back in general. That is so uniquely special. And a lot of people go through life never realizing how important service work is.
Yeah, the question, it's not so much how do we help ourselves? It's easy to help ourselves. I help myself, but the question should be how do we help others then? And so that's what I've really taken to heart, and hopefully I'm doing through the podcast, the articles, and now the book.
Yeah. We think we're such an independent society, but really we're very interdependent. And we've kind of lost our way over the years,
Yeah, no, we need each other. We need people. If anything, COVID proved that, is that we are a society, we are organisms that need each other. We need people. And so it's all about how we can help each other. And so that's really the goal, I think, for not just me, but for everybody.
I think it's so awesome how you're a voice for people who've gone through adoption, birth mothers, every
Mhm.
part of the process of adoption. You're shining light on that in a positive way. And I think that part's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't always do that. I always thought, okay, let's focus on the adoptee. But then I realized, adoption, raising a kid takes a village. Adoption's a village. You can't just love one part and forget about the others. For as much love as we have for that adoptee, we need to have for the parents. We need to have for the birth mother. These children, me, myself, I wasn't sculpted out of clay. It's not like Greek times. Someone gave birth to me. And so we need just to open our hearts for everything. For as much grace and understanding as we hope for someone to approach us with when we fall short, we need to approach others with. And
Yeah.
so it's really just about how do I shine a light on other stories? How do I help other voices get lifted up? How do we listen and learn from each other?
Yeah. Open up your ears. Yeah. One more question before we do the lightning round. What did your parents say when you told them you were going to write a book?
Well, that's funny. I didn't tell them, actually. I'm a big proponent of you don't talk about the big game until it happens. So whenever I had like a magazine come out or I was on TV and the radio, I kind of spring it on them. So I think what we were out to dinner, I'm just like, oh, by the way, I wrote a book. And then just they're like, what? And then I showed them the next morning, like, yeah, it's on Amazon. First one, they were the first ones to order it. So they have copy number one. Whenever I have
Wow.
like podcasts come out, because they're not on social media, I'm just like, oh, by the way, this came out. And I was like, play it for them and then walk away, So it's always, I don't ever want to talk about something and have it fall through because I've had that happen. So it's
Mhm.
always, let me make sure all my, eggs are going to hatch, my ducks are in a line, and then I'll just kind of surprise them.
What a boss move. I think that's awesome. If my kid took me to dinner and said I wrote a book, I would be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of tears when my mother found out. She just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. She has to be so proud. I mean, I have a 16-year-old, so you're not too far off from that. And I'm extremely proud of you, and I just met you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, we've made it to our lightning round of our show. This is a
Ready.
fun get to know you session to close out the episode because listeners get very invested in who you are after you tell your story. So, the first question is you're given 3 options and you have to choose one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
Shark dive.
Okay. Have you done any of the 3?
Nope, but I'm afraid of heights. And shark dive is the only one that wasn't high up.
So funny. I would say like 90% of my guests are afraid of heights. Like, I wonder what that translates to just like the general population.
I mean, nothing can save you. I'd rather try and fight a shark than save myself from falling out of a plane. I don't think one of them I got a little chance.
That's
Not a
actually a
high
really
chance,
good
a
perspective.
little chance.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. You're actually right. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
The one that Elvis would walk out to. So it's like the also Sprague. I can't remember what it is, but it's like the Space Odyssey. I think that's what it is. Have that
Yeah.
have that play every time I walk in.
Okay, love it. It's so funny when you talk about Elvis, it always makes me think of Lilo and Stitch and how she's obsessed with Elvis.
Yeah, it's super cool. I've been to Graceland a few times. I have a photo of preschool Wilson dressed up as Elvis. It's not a new thing. It's been a lifelong thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was an
Yeah.
amazing, talented singer, songwriter, all of it. All right, number 3. What is your favorite Disney movie?
The Lion King.
Such good music. Sad. Super sad.
It's
Yeah,
so good.
so good. Number 4. What is something you're obsessed with?
Probably I'd say Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
It's the passion. It's how I just kind of get through life. Tough times, happy times. There's always a good song to go with it.
Mm-hmm. I have that same type of relationship, but with Taylor Swift. She's the soundtrack to my life.
Or did you go crazy when you found out she was engaged?
Yes. Well, so her love life doesn't interest me as much. I like her songs about it, but I was way more obsessed about her new music coming out October 3rd. That I was freaking out about.
It's
All right.
awesome.
Last question, number 5. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom means the ability to do and act in a way that doesn't harm others, but follows your passion. I just got done reading a part of my business law textbook, and it's the freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, to act in a way that you want to, that doesn't create chaos or harm others. That's what freedom is to me. Now, what you do with those actions, that's up to you. And you just have to be ready at the end of the day to sleep in the bed that you make yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That was really well said. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Your story is going to help so many people. I mean, you're shining light on such an important topic that we needed to talk about. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
Just go to markedbyadoption.com now. It's I think one of the first few times I can say that now instead of finding my socials, but there you can get to know me a little bit, get the book, then just follow my social media through there if you really want to stay in contact. My email is on the website, but just markedbyadoption.com.
Awesome. All right, hon. So nice meeting you.
Thank you. You too.